Wondering what's next in your business or personal life? Welcome to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, a podcast dedicated to helping you with all of life's challenges, discoveries, and opportunities. Whether you're seeking a new career, retirement, or simply wanting to make an impact in your community or the world. Join Jen Du Plessis and her guests as they explore how to start, what to do when you're in the thick of a change or growth, and how to leave a mark in this world after breaking through your next achievement. You are moments away from the aha you've been seeking.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. I'm your host, Lady Jen Du Plessis, and with me today is Kalpana Pot. I'm so excited to have her here. Her energy is already coming through the Zoom, right?
Yes.
And we got the memo. If you're listening, you definitely want to go watch us, but we got the memo about wearing black today, but she's all blinged out because she's all about science. And this is I'm so excited about this interview because it's right down the alley of something I love, which I'll tell you here in a moment, but also, just how dynamic you are and how versatile you are is exciting for me because everyone says to me, what don't you do, Jen? And I actually get to say, what don't you do? Right. So let me take a quick second here to introduce her and make sure that we all know who is with us today. Kalpana is a actor. She's an actress, writer, host, and science communicator, which we were just talking about too. She's appeared on numerous national commercials and TV shows like Grey's Anatomy, Hot in Cleveland. Oh, I want to ask you about Betty White. Hopefully you worked with her. And Days of Our Lives, just to name a few. She runs a popular space-based social media, she runs popular space-based social media pages, which I've watched, and it's really cool because you give all this really neat stuff all the time. And she's a published author of Spaced Out, which I am so grateful to have an actual signed copy, and it's called Spaced Out, A Casual Approach to the Cosmos. She's an accomplished dancer and singer, and she has a black belt in Taekwondo, which you would never know. And she's an animal lover, which I saw from her picture that came on from Zoom. I was all excited about seeing the little puppies that you had. So welcome to the show. We are so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this stuff. And what a wonderful introduction from you, Lady Jen. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to get talking.
Yeah, I know there's so much to talk about. Okay, so obviously, you're an actress too. So let's just kind of go through that because I know where your passion, look, passions and talents are kind of the same. A lot of times your passions are your talents. So you have talent in both of these areas among several others as well. But I know you're an actress. You've done some really great shows, had a great opportunity to do that, as well as lots of commercials that we've probably seen you in and didn't even know that you were in them at that time. And so, my first question is, what came first? And I just was talking about this in the green room too, that the chicken or the egg kind of thing. What came first, science or acting? How did this all come together?
That is one of the best questions anyone has asked me because I've never thought about it myself. So I always knew I was going to pursue entertainment, but I've always had an interest in science. But growing up, never thought you could merge the two. It had to kind of be one or the other. And so growing up in the household I did, where everybody else literally became a doctor. I have two older sisters who are physicians. Mom's a dentist. Dad's a psychiatrist. And I was like, I'm going to act. So being the youngest, though, I got away with it, being the black sheep that way. But I've nonetheless always had an interest in science. Mine specifically is space and astronomy, because I don't know, maybe the pretty pictures or something about pondering the universe that is just amazing to me. And as you get older, you realize that it just makes you a better person. So it's hard to say. Maybe the interest in science came first, but the pursuit of a career in entertainment came first. However, I'm so lucky that in this day and age, I get to kind of do both. And I've figured out that path on my own. So the stories that I would like to tell ultimately have something to do with science. And I realized that about myself during the pandemic when a lot of anti-science misinformation and things like that were coming up. And I do sympathize with people who were freaking out about stuff. It was a tough time. And everybody was worried and paranoid and things might have seemed rushed. I totally get that. I'm someone who tends to trust the experts because I feel like science is what's gotten humanity to where we are as a civilization. So when I kept seeing a lot of the not even mistrust, but backlash against anything scientific, it
Right.
really worried me. And I still deal with that to this day. So my goal is to tell stories that humanize people in science to hopefully help mitigate this anti-science movement that's happening.
Okay, well, good. And I'm hoping that you're going to be able to tell some of those stories too, so that we can understand what you mean by humanizing science. I mean,
Sure.
I was going to be a cardiologist. I was pre-med for cardiology, so I'm
Wow.
definitely a STEM girl. There's no doubt about it. And I ended up going into engineering. So that's where it comes from. So I
Yeah.
totally get that piece of it, and how, especially as women, we think that we have to work twice as hard and all that stuff. And we actually, all our smarts are sitting right there, but we feel like we have to work twice as hard and not be as feminine, right? And what that does is that closes in our social ability, because we're just used to being that way, that way. So it's not that we're not feminine, it's that it closes in that social. So I love that you're making it humane, not just for women, but for men too. And I think that that's, really an important piece of, because this is definitely going to move forward. I mean, it's popular. It is a popular
Right.
thing right now about, STEM and getting women, more and more involved in it. So
Yeah.
okay, so that happened. Well, it's interesting that you went to Grey's Anatomy, right? Did you play a doctor? Because I actually haven't seen Grey's Anatomy in God knows how many years it's been, but
You know what? To be fair, I never watch anything I'm in, so I'm right there with you. But I was
oh,
actually a
okay,
patient.
good.
However, I tell my family all the time, like, you guys are all doctors. Maybe one day I'll play one on TV. But I was a patient and it was really fun. It was we started so many times when you do these shoots, you start so early in the morning, and I'm not much of a morning person, but you make it happen. And then the earlier you start, the earlier you get done, and then you have the rest of your day. But it was a wonderful professional experience. The main actors that I worked with who were regulars on the show, just good people, and you can tell that they're just grateful to be there because entertainment is a very difficult journey to pursue. So when you finally get your series regular role or whatever it is that your goals are in this town, it's pretty contagious in a good way to be around people that way, that their energy is contagious. So it was a great time. And then, it being such a popular show, a lot of people I told that I was on it were so excited. And yeah, it was fun, but I was not a doctor. I was a patient. One day I'll be
That's
one.
awesome. No, I love it. I think that's awesome. And then now you were in Hot in Cleveland, and I immediately think of Betty White, which, by the way, funny
Yes.
thing, your little puppies that you have there, my hairdresser has a puppy called Betty White. That's her name.
So cute. What a
That's her name,
great
and she looks
name.
just like your dogs. Yeah, her name's
Yeah. Oh
Betty
my
White.
God, that's adorable. Which is so fitting because she's an animal. She was. I unfortunately have to speak to about her in past tense
I
now, but she
know.
was an animal lover, which is amazing. But I'm so glad you asked that because Hot in Cleveland still to this day was my favorite shoot experience out of everything I've done, just because I got to work with her for about 5 days. And my family and I were huge fans of Golden Girls. And
Yeah.
then so getting to be on that working with her was amazing. And I just mentioned really good energy with actors who have made it pretty far in their careers. She was everything you would think she would be. She's very humble, but very happy. And I attribute her longevity to just enjoying what she did and being a humble person about it. So it was a dream come true. I still couldn't speak about her any more highly than I do. She was as incredible as you think she is.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, happiness is what it's all about. It truly is. I mean, and that's what makes the world go round. And I know we're going to talk about the
Right.
world, right? We're going to talk about
Right.
okay.
Exactly. That it's
Yeah.
round.
So, I know that you love talking about recent things, and I do want to kind of touch on those things that you recommended for me and things, but tell us a little bit about what it means to have a casual approach to the cosmos. Because I mean, I haven't read the whole book. I'm more like flipping through it and kind of go, oh, that's cool and that's neat. And it was funny because, and I'll talk about this later on, but the pale blue dot, I actually have a framed poster of the pale blue dot because I love it
That's amazing.
so much. I love it. But no, I think
That's
there's a lot of
amazing.
people listening that wouldn't know that. So, but as you're
They-
going through it, I mean, what do you mean by a casual approach to the cosmos as opposed to some other approach?
Yeah. So my skill set, as I've discovered for myself, is being a science communicator. I don't do the research. I'm not behind any of the telescopes or anything like that. What I do is read up on the recent discoveries or news or anything that people want me to talk about, and I communicate it to everyday people who don't have an expertise in this field. Because you are talking about some of the most complex topics literally in the universe, and what I try to do is just make it accessible to everybody. So that's where the casual part comes from, is that pun intended, it's a down to earth approach to some of the most complex topics in the universe. So I just want it to be accessible to everybody. I want everyone to take an interest in space, even if they feel intimidated by it. Hopefully, this book can help
Yeah.
mitigate that.
Well, and I think it's interesting. We were talking in the green room as well, is that I had just received this book from you, and we were at Secret Knock doing, we were both signing books and stuff. And
Yeah.
and then the eclipse came, and it was like it never happened in 100 and some years, and yet it happens every 18 months. I learned in your book, right?
Right.
It
Right.
happens every
Yep.
18 months somewhere, but not always
Somewhere.
right across America, USA, which is why we were all excited, right? Because it must have happened in some other country and they must have been excited too. But when we were reading
Exactly.
it, I'm like, oh, what's the difference between an eclipse and all of it? It was just really, really helpful. And my grandkids read it too. My elder grandkids, they were reading that part of it, and saying, okay, this is what we're going to be doing in a couple days and
That's
stuff.
so amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah,
Thank you for telling me that, right? When knowing
yeah,
that my work is actually helping people learn or it's
yeah.
applicable to real world situations, that means so much. Like that's my goal for this. So I'm so glad to hear that. And it did work out. Eclipse wise, I flew back to Ohio, which is where I'm originally from, currently LA based, but I flew back to Ohio with family
Oh,
who were
wow.
there to see it. And we got so lucky. It was the one clear day of the
Yeah,
week
that's what
because
I
every other day rained. And it was meant to be. And it was as incredible. The first one I ever saw was in 2017 when it passed, I think, or through the Northwest. I remember being in Oregon for it. And it just took my breath away. Literally, a single tear fell, very dramatic as an actor. And it was amazing. This one was just as amazing. I don't know how to describe this phenomenon. Like the fact that we're the only planet in the solar system to even get a full eclipse. Like if I was standing on, I don't know, Mars. Mars
Yeah,
has two little moons. It wouldn't fully cover the sun. No other planet's moons would fully cover the sun from their perspective. So the fact that only Earth has that, it's a weird phenomenon that I can't explain, but the most incredible thing I've ever seen, for
yeah.
sure.
Well, I'm in Virginia, so we had, I think it was an 89% eclipse. It was funny because we live in the country, and I
Mm,
go, oh, I don't know if this is going to be, I mean, I was excited. I was like, oh, it's going to be dark. It didn't get dark at all. It was sort of like dusk. But
right.
what I thought was funny is that we had foxes not howling but barking, and we know the difference between a fox and a dog because they're around
Right.
us all the time. But we heard foxes were barking, hoot owls started hooting, and the horses were having a conniption. We've got 21 horses right next door to us, and they were all and they started walking into the barn because they were confused. They were like, it must be, don't tell me I have to go to bed right now. I don't want to go to bed, right? That frustration as they walked into the barn. And then it went past, and all of a sudden they were just kind of looking out. Everything went quiet. It was
Right.
eerie, but really cool at the same
That
time.
is so cool. The animal reactions to eclipses are some of my favorite things. It's so cute. This just shows you how much they depend on sunlight and their natural time
Yeah.
cycles. It goes dark for a few minutes and they're like, "Oh, it's bedtime, I guess." And then they come out, they're like, "Wait, what just happened?" It's so funny. I was like hearing about all like the major news through the
Yeah.
major news about zoos and then how their animals would just kind of go back to bed and then
Right.
reemerge a bit later like what just happened? And I love that.
It really was funny. I think the best thing for me was the hoot owls because they do hoot at
Right.
night, and they were just going crazy. And I don't know if you've ever heard a hoot owl, and then we'll go on to some other things, but it is funny. But they hoot and then they get so excited they sound like monkeys going back and forth.
Really?
It is the coolest thing. And they were back and forth, and they don't even sound like that individually. So you have to go on
Interesting.
YouTube and you have to listen, what's a hoot owl sound like and what do a bunch of them sound like, because it's pretty cool. They were just, and then the dog, the foxes were
Yeah.
barking, and it was just crazy.
Oh my God, I definitely will. Because I mean, as you know, I love animals and I love owls too. I've never known that about them. So I'm going to for sure YouTube that. That's too funny.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, yeah, I mean, so that was something that was recent in the news, that
Hmm.
everybody knew about in the US because, I know obviously, this podcast is everywhere, but we were so excited. And I'm sure someone listening from another country is going, yeah, yeah, we've seen them before. You people
Yeah,
over
yeah,
there,
exactly.
excited.
That's the thing,
Right.
right? So they are rare, but it kind of just depends on the location. Like I said, on average,
Yeah,
they happen every 18 months somewhere. But the fact that it won't happen again in the US, I want to say through the continental US won't be until 2044. And
yeah,
then 2033, there'll be one passing through Alaska. So technically the US as
yeah,
well. So it's the last
yeah.
time here for a little while. And I think that's why people got extra excited about it.
Well, and I think too, because there is a certain age demographic that's the last time they're going to probably see it, right?
Yeah,
And it was just that's
right.
what made it really special is, and I heard that a lot is like this will be the last time in my lifetime, and how
Mm,
special to be able to spend it with my grandkids and
yeah.
all of that. And I think that was, super special. So that's something in the recent news.
Mhm.
What's going on, in the future? Like, what are you hearing about, endeavors? I mean, we obviously have, I want to say Elon Musk, but it's not, I don't think it's him. I can't remember the other guy who did the private things. We have all this slingshot to Mars that is being talked about. I'll say it's being,
Right.
I call it a slingshot because it's like a suction tube, right? It just flings us around there and up we go. So tell us a little bit about some of the things we might not hear in mainstream media.
Definitely. So, what I'm most excited for, which you'll start to hear a bit more about it as the decade goes on, is NASA's Artemis mission. And this mission is to get people back, and I say back to the moon, hence my shirt. I listed all the times humans have gone there because,
Right.
I deal with that backlash a lot. Subject for later. But so NASA wants to get people back to the moon, and the first woman, and I believe the first person of color as well. And it's happening in a few stages.
Yeah.
So hopefully by the end of the decade, humans will actually land back on the moon. And then so far, they've been able to do an uncrewed mission. So just the spacecraft itself going around the moon and back. And it's the furthest a vehicle that's designed for humans has ever gone before. So no humans were in it yet, but that would be the plan. The second phase,
Yeah.
Artemis 2, would be to just make people orbit the moon. And then the third phase, obviously, being people landing on the moon. And so in the past few decades, NASA has had to have depended on private companies a lot. So that's why they collaborate with SpaceX. And then I think Blue Origin might be a contender as well, which is Jeff Bezos's company.
There we go, Jeff Bezos.
And yes, yes. There's so many of them. A lot of billionaires are trying to do it these days. I think Elon Musk was just among the first, so he gets most of like
Yeah.
when you think about private space enterprises, you think of SpaceX. But they're doing amazing stuff. Not people have mixed opinions about him, but I respect his ventures. Obviously, it aligns with the stuff I'm into. So, but I think it's great that
Right.
someone who's in the position to help space agencies is doing it. He could have spent his billions doing something else, but he's helping humans explore the universe beyond what we've ever done before. So I'm really excited for NASA's Artemis mission. And then, of course, the famous James Webb Space Telescope has been making unprecedented discoveries. A
Mhm.
lot of debate these days about it discovering galaxies that were more well formed than they ever thought possible. And so a lot of people take that to believe, oh, is the age of the universe wrong then? Is the universe much older than we think, which is 13.8 billion years old? Is it older than that now? Because if galaxies are well formed so early on, that means maybe there had to have been a lot more time leading up to that. But the experts still say the universe is 13.8 billion years old because of all the evidence we have to support that. So what they're saying instead is that they just need to rethink galaxy formation. It doesn't negate the age of the universe, but it's always so fun. Like I love when we get things quote unquote wrong. And I won't say wrong in a bad way, but there's new information that challenges what we once thought we knew. And that's what science is all about. So all these discoveries that are contradicting things we thought we knew are awesome. Like that's what it's all about. So it continues to make incredible discoveries. So we
Yeah.
just have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, and it kind of this question aligns with, if we're watching NCIS or SUV, any of these,
Mhm.
there, so it's not that anyone got it wrong in the 70s, it's that we didn't have DNA available, right? And all
Right.
of a sudden we can get DNA and it takes 6 months, but now it takes 6 days. And it's not that, but why do you think there's so much, I don't want to say negative press because I don't think it's so much press, but why do you think there's so much pushback in science as it relates to space as opposed to as what it relates to, our everyday lives? Why do you think there's so much resistance there?
That's a very good question. And it's something I'm still trying to figure out as I do social media content creation, because every so often I will get backlash from people who, think the earth is flat or the moon landing wasn't real. Or if you go to NASA's Instagram page, which they have almost 100 million followers, which is amazing, but so many of the comments are, oh, CGI, CGI, as in like everything they put out is fake. And I still can't for the life of me figure out why, of all things, it's space stuff that has the most backlash against it. There's something about it that makes people that the government, because NASA is a government agency, not that, but they're not even the only space agency in the world. And it's that itself doesn't make sense to me, but it's overall coming from a mistrust of anything government. So it's like, okay, well, NASA.gov, anything they say is a lie. And I'm not fully understanding it, because there's information is literally at your fingertips. Unlimited information is literally at your fingertips these days. You can read upon what's actually factually true, or go down these conspiracy rabbit holes on social media and believe that, which I don't understand why. And I'm still trying to figure it out. If there's any psychologist out there who can answer these questions for us, I would love to know, because I'm also trying to understand them.
Yeah, and I know you have a very definitive theory about, or not even theory. Well, let's just say it's the facts that you have researched about the landing on the moon. So tell us a little bit about that, about the flag and the steps and
Right.
it's
Sure.
pretty interesting, just so that, because what we're talking about here is, having significance in the world and breaking through glass ceilings, and that's what's happening, is that we're constantly breaking through glass ceilings in this arena. So tell us a little bit about what you learned in your research about the moon.
Definitely. So
Yeah.
over a dozen people have landed on the moon. It wasn't just Apollo 11, the Neil Armstrong people who had landed the first time, not just those two. There was many more missions. I believe the last one was 1972 of landing humans on the moon. And then, so a lot of, the backlash that I get is like, okay, well, explain how the flag was waving in the wind. And when you actually watch the footage of Buzz Aldrin planting the flag, he's literally screwing it in. So when you're screwing in the flag into the lunar surface, or any surface for that matter, the fabric of the flag itself is going to wave back and forth. Like, that's physics. But when he walks
she just moved her
away,
hair. You have to go.
yeah, exactly. That's all that's happening. But when he walks away from the flag, it doesn't move anymore. So there's no wind or atmosphere or studio setting that's causing it to happen. It's literally just a human interaction with an object, which is physics. And so everything is actually debunkable, but I don't think the people who come at me are actually list or doing the research themselves. They hear somebody else say it. Yes, exactly. It's just all hearsay. And then they come at me, where versus them maybe like, hey, maybe I should take a look at the footage and see if what they're saying is true or not. So when he walks away, it's no longer waving in the wind. There's also something else people had brought up about shadows, that there's a lot of I can't remember. It's not parallel lines. It's the fact that there's shadows, let's say, of the spacecraft or anything that eventually intersect. And they say that the shadows mean that there's filming it in a studio, because it looks to them that there's multiple sources of light. Yes, exactly. But which isn't the case. Like, you have these converging shadows even on Earth on a sunny day, just because of perspective and landscape. If you actually had multiple sources of light, you'd have all these shadows crossing in all sorts of directions. So that itself was literally just because of the sun. And then also the final point, there's so many points to make, but one of the final points I tend to tell people is that we were in competition with the Soviet Union at the time, and they admitted that we got there. I would think them, of all people, would want to try to fight against it as much as possible. But if they admitted it, what's the problem now? And then also, why is it so hard to believe that we got there? I don't understand. Like, do you think so lowly of our species that we couldn't do it? So
well, yeah, and I think one of of the counterpoints to that is the last time that a human was up on the moon, it was 1972, and John F.
Mhm.
Kennedy said, I want us to go to the moon within what, it was like 6 months or some crazy number.
Right.
I don't remember what the exact number was, but he said, I
Mhm.
want, we are going to the moon. And if we got there so quickly, why? Why is it taking so long to go back?
Right. That's actually a very fair question. So after all the moon landings happened, I forgot exactly what NASA's budget was at that time compared to what it's now. Right now, I believe it's less than 1% of the entire federal budget. So they
Yeah.
get not even 1% of anything, and it keeps getting cut every year. I know people who got laid off recently at JPL, or Jet Propulsion Laboratory here in Pasadena, because of NASA budget cuts, and it
Yeah.
continues to happen. So back in the day, when this was our big goal, they had a huge budget, so they were able to do these things. It's expensive to send people anywhere, and we've gotten better at sending robots for that reason. So their budget got significantly slashed after we went, because the goal was accomplished. You know, they brought back their moon rocks, we did our research, cool, mission accomplished, cut the budget. But because they did that, though, NASA turned their sights on Earth and studying planets like Venus, and we were able to learn a lot about climate change, because that's kind of all we could do with the budget we had at the time. So it wasn't that. I totally get that argument, though, because
Yeah.
it's like, if we could do it once, why haven't we done it in over 50 years? And it was
With all the
essentially,
technology.
what for?
Yeah. 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 I love
Yeah.
it. No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you about, we were at Secret Knock together, and we were introduced to
Mhm.
this blinking, standing robot. Were you there when she was there?
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
It was,
Amika, right? I
she would
think it's
turn
what
her
her
head
name.
and blink, and she made her lips moved, and almost in sync. I talked to I can't remember who I was talking to. Oh my goodness, who's really involved with that. Oh, I can't think of his name right now, but Larry Namer, who founded E
Mm,
Entertainment, who's near
right.
who's very involved with it. And I said, her lips move. And interestingly, when she was speaking Mandarin Chinese, her lips were
Yeah.
moving like she was speaking Mandarin Chinese. And he said
Right.
it's 95% there, but it's not quite all there. But I'm just curious. I mean, it was fascinating to me because she would blink,
Yeah.
look, scowl at Greg, like he was asking a
Right.
funny question, and she'd go, I don't really know.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you think about that? Because that's still in the line of science. It's not outer space, but it's still in the line of science.
Yeah.
What did you think about that? Um,
It's, oh gosh, I think it had everybody pretty speechless because of how, like you're saying, real she was. Like, she would just stand there and take in the entire room, and it looked like she was having actual human thoughts.
right.
Us. Right? Like, I could maybe kill everyone in here right now, but I'm choosing not to. I think everyone has a general paranoia because of science fiction about what
Yeah.
these robots will eventually do to us. I think the engineering is incredible. I'm always in awe of people who can do these types of things and develop things that were only once in science fiction, and they're making it real. But I do worry, though, as to how much more advanced they will be getting, and if it is inevitable that they will take us over. Because if intelligence is what rules this planet, as we've demonstrated as humans, and there's something even we create that's more intelligent than us, then why wouldn't they? So I'm like optimistically cautious, like I'm excited, but actually very worried at the same time.
Yeah, and I think we all are. I think a lot of people are, concerned about, I know they asked the question, hey, so, why wouldn't you want to? And the response, and it took a minute, like she was trying to be
Mm.
politically correct in her answer, which I thought
Yeah,
was hilarious.
right, right.
Like
It
the
did take a minute.
computing was like as
Right.
good as this bad as this good as this bad, and she said, no, we always
Yeah.
want humans because we can never have the emotion, and we need the emotion to balance the world. And I thought that was a really, really good answer. And I thought, okay, you keep believing that, sister. Um,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Tell all your robot friends to believe
yes.
that.
Oh my gosh, it was
That's
so
so
exciting.
true.
That was so fun. Okay, so I want to talk about your book. As we end our time together today, I want to just talk about your book, and I'm going to hold it up again, spaced out. It matches
Thank
us
you.
because we're wearing black and white. Um, it's
You're
hilarious.
wrong.
I don't know how that happened. I should have worn blue because that's, sky. But of
Right.
all of these things that you have in here, I mean, there's so many topics. We already talked about, the eclipse, and I do want to talk about the pale blue dot, but the Big Bang Theory and solar activity and all kinds of stuff. What's your favorite
Mhm.
part? What is it that just charges you up about space?
That's another great question, Lady Jen. You have so many great questions today that I'm like, I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that before. Very good question. I always think, just to generalize, it's probably more of like the deep space objects, more of the unknown, like black holes, despite, Kip Thorne being the Nobel prize-winning theoretical physicist behind the movie Interstellar, so he understands black holes, but even someone like him doesn't fully know what happens in them. All the laws of physics that we know break down at the event horizon. So things like that, black holes, neutron stars, just the anomalies, these weird, inexplainable things about space that,
Yeah,
and the numbers, the distance. I think overall, the
that's hard.
feeling,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
hard for me to comprehend. Light years and billions of, I mean, I get
yes, right,
billions of miles, but I don't get light years and stuff. So, I
yeah.
think for me, it goes to the edge of the earth for me of my comprehension.
No, I totally get it. Honestly, even people like me who've studied this for so long, we understand what a light year is, but we can't ever fully comprehend it. We're like, okay, this is, 4 light years away. That's 25 trillion miles. We
Yeah,
get that number, but we'll never be able to fully comprehend it. And we just accept it for what it is. So space that way, which,
yeah.
it relates actually back to pale blue dot. The point is that astronomy is a humbling and character building experience. And I think that ultimately, when you tug on the heartstrings that way, that's what draws me to it, is that when you ponder things greater than yourself, it makes the world a better place. And that's what I want people to get more than anything, more than even the science about space. I just wanted to give people a perspective. So I think that's probably the most important thing to me.
Yeah. So we've mentioned the pale blue dot a couple
Mhm.
times. Let's talk about that because
Yeah.
really it isn't something I stumbled across it several years ago and I found on Etsy a poster about it. I mean, I
I
have the
love that.
poster, I have the poster of the the oh gosh, the iceberg, and all the work that has to be done underneath an
Yeah,
iceberg and that kind of thing. So it's
right.
sort of
The
in
metaphor.
line with that for me. But let's talk about that just for a second for anyone who's never heard of it before and how they could, just something new. So we're reading from the pages of your book, basically.
Yes, I would more than happy to talk about it. So pale blue dot is an image of Earth from, I want to say, 4 billion miles away. So Voyager 1 is the furthest man-made spacecraft at this point. It's technically in interstellar space, but several months after it was launched, I forgot where it was, probably by Neptune or so, it turned around and took a picture of all the planets in our solar system, which is what's called a family portrait. But then the picture of Earth is just literally a tiny pixel in this dark screen, and it's actually lit up by a sunbeam. So picture like a black box, one little streak of light going across it,
Yeah.
and a tiny little blue pixel. Literally, it's blue because Earth's predominantly water,
Yeah.
tiny blue pixel in the middle of it. And it was Carl Sagan's idea to do it because of the perspective it was going to give humanity. So based on the inspiration he got by looking at this literal pale blue dot, he wrote this amazing,
Poem.
almost, yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
beautiful.
beautiful. And all it does is just give you perspective. It's like when you look at this pixel and you think of all the blood that's been shed by rulers and conquerors from one corner of this pixel across the other one, and all like the dumb things that we get, we hate each other for. When you look at Earth as such a tiny little dot in the grand, like cosmic arena, as he calls it, it gives you perspective. And he even says later, astronomy is a humbling and character building experience, but also that there's no hint that help is going to come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. So if we look at ourselves as a collective and not one versus the other, then it'll make the world a better place. And that's why Pale Blue Dot is still to this day my favorite piece of writing
Oh
ever,
my gosh,
because
that's so
of,
funny. Yeah, because I
yeah.
love it. I love it. Yeah, he talks about the collaborative, right? The collaboration that we need to do to maintain this beautiful planet that we live on. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just think it's so fun. I really do. So okay, tell us what is up, what's ahead for you? What's next for you?
Sure. So, my ultimate goal working entertainment, as we mentioned at the very beginning of this, is to tell stories that humanize people in science. So, my goal right now is to get my pilot made. And a pilot is just the first episode of any series on
Right.
TV. And because I like comedy, it's a workplace comedy based on nerds in the science museum, which is
Oh
what
my
I do.
gosh.
Yeah. And which isn't
It's like
surprisingly been
animal
done
control.
before.
It's like animal control for scientists.
For science, exactly. Working in a space museum, which I think I forgot to mention for a while I worked at, there's a famous observatory here in LA called Griffith Observatory. And so I worked for a while there, just, educating
Learning.
as like a museum guide, the public about space. And so I was like, why has this never been a series? And the push to do it was the anti-science that I mentioned that came up during the pandemic. And by doing so, I hope that people just see, behind all these discoveries and things that you mistrust, there's just a bunch of nerds who are curious about our universe. There's no hidden agenda. We're not trying to lie. And because I love storytelling, I think my way of making a positive impact on this world is to humanize people in science and inspire them at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's my goal. Wish me luck
Oh
that
my
some
gosh,
network
that
will
is
want to
so
take
cool.
it.
I know. I can't wait for it to come out. Hopefully you'll call me and say, hey, it's happening. It is totally happening.
Yes, we're
And
putting that out there. Yes,
I'm on my
yes.
way. Like I'm going to drive there. Sorry, I'm making driving things. I'll fly there. I'll buy my ticket.
Yes, whatever's easiest for you. But no, thank you for that. We're putting it out there and I hope things will work out. So
It
that's my
will.
goal.
It will because you put it in the universe, right? You
Putting
put
it
it out in the
first,
universe.
right.
Manifesting of it. Okay, so I have one last question for you. What would you like to leave with the listen, leave for the listener, the person who is listening, so speaking directly to the person who's listening to the show and saying, here's a quote, here's a mantra, here's a story, something that you want to leave with them to spark their interest in learning more about astronomy and the world and the universe.
Definitely. I think don't ever be intimidated that somebody's smarter than you. When it especially comes to astronomy, it's all about repetition. So much of this that I learned, which by the way, I'm self-taught, I don't even have a degree in it. I did this because I wanted to learn. So if I can do it, being an actor, I'm not brilliant in that like any special Einstein way. I learned this stuff because I wanted to. So don't ever think that you're not smart enough to learn literally anything in this universe. If space is it, it's biology, it's whatever you want. Be patient with yourself and believe that you can learn it because you can.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I have enjoyed so much talking to you. Thank you so much
Likewise.
for everything. And
Thank
thanks for
you.
this, again, this book. Thank you again for this book because it sits by my husband's, where he sits and watches TV and he oscillates right now between this one and something about the brain because he had a traumatic brain injury. So he's oscillating between the two and learning about his brain and learning about space because our son's name is Kirk after
I love
Captain Kirk.
that. Yeah, exactly. I love it. That's amazing.
And he's not a Trekkie or anything, but I think, he was when we were little, when it was big.
Mhm.
And so he's really, really interested in this. And I just thank you so much for doing what you're doing. And I love that you're supporting STEM. And what can we do for you? Someone who's listening, what could we do for you? Are you speaking at schools? Are you speaking at STEM, events and conferences and camps and things for kids? What can we do for you as listeners to help you?
That is so kind of you to ask. I'm still figuring out my journey. My ultimate goal is to get my pilot made. So if anybody knows any executives in Netflix, please let me know. Otherwise, more than for me, I guess for the cause that I'm fighting for, if you ever see on social media or anything, some kind of anti-science backlash, don't be afraid to speak up. I think it's the people who are the most sensible who stay quiet the most because we're not as extreme as both ends, right? Politically, scientifically, whatever. But I think in this day and age, unfortunately, we do have to speak up for the truth more so. So if you ever see anything that you disagree with because it's incorrect, please say something. So, but otherwise, yeah, thank you for listening and hopefully I can update you guys on my journey as I figure it out for myself.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being with us today. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it.
It was such an honor for me, Lady Jen. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
Thank you. Okay, everybody. So run on over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Make sure that you're there because we put out so much more than just this show. We have all kinds of content over there for you. And I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen into the show. And please, if you get a moment, give us a great 5-star rating. Oh, isn't that cute? Stars too. 5-star rating. Give us a great 5-star rating and, write something beautiful about what you heard today and how it inspired you. And with that, I will catch you next time on Success to Significance, Life After Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to Success to Significance with Jen Du Plessis, the #1 podcast for people wanting to give more value and make an impact. Loved this episode? Be sure to subscribe right now at www.jenduplessis.com/S2S for more stories, strategies, and thoughts to help you gain significance and success. And if you like what we're doing, don't forget to give us a rating and review so we can continue to bring you the best content possible. Join us next week for another breakthrough episode. Thank you for listening.